Welcome back to the Master Your Money podcast with me, Marini Jackson, your guide to mastering credit, building wealth, and creating financial freedom. Let's get started with today's episode. So, today we are going to talk about debt, specifically having a debt detox and using a step by step plan to pay off debt without feeling deprived. So if you see me looking down, I do have notes in front of me. I do have some notes, but essentially, debt. At some point, most of us are going to have to make a big ticket purchase, such as a car, a home, or even paying for a college education, perhaps for ourselves or children. And if you don't have the money, what most people do is they get a loan, and that creates debt. Now, when you do sign your name to the dotted line, a promissory note in the case of student loans, or with your car, your home, you are signing paperwork and documents saying that, yes, I, Marini Jackson, am taking possession of this car, and the cost is this. This is how much interest will be charged, and this is my total payment once I have paid it off in this amount of time, the terms. So essentially, I'll start with myself. With debt, growing up, I thought debt was a terrible thing. I knew that, like my parents, when they divorced, my mom got the home and got us, her children, but I do know she was paying the mortgage every single month on the house. She really didn't explain a lot to us about credit, things of that nature, but I did know, mom was paying a mortgage. And eventually she got cars, they were used, so she wasn't really paying car payments. But I believe my mother had a credit card at one time, but she did not, openly talk to us about debt, about credit. And once that card was paid off, she pretty much said, "I'm not gonna get additional credit cards," which is smart. And that was basically it. So when I went to college, my first year of school, I this is the joke that I made with myself is they must have read my financial aid application information incorrectly if they thought my mother was going to pay over $20,000 a year. Um, and that was, I had my financial aid package, but the remaining contribution, it was a lot. And I knew my mother was not in a place to pay that. And I really wanted to go to this particular school. So my first year, I was able to get scholarships to cover what would have been a loan. But my second through fourth years of college, essentially, I did have to get student loans. And honestly, I felt kind of bad, kind of defeated that I had to get student loans because some students were going to various schools and getting full scholarships. So in my mind, yes, I was going to a college, getting a good education, but I was not too excited about the fact that I would have some debt once I graduated. Nevertheless, I went to college, got my education, graduated, and of course had that student loan debt. So with the debt, anytime you get loans, whether it's the car, as I mentioned, the house, student loans, you're given a debt repayment schedule. Now, in particular with student loans, I'm not sure how much has changed since I was a student, an undergraduate student, but there were several options that we had. One was income-based repayment. And basically, like a lot of lenders know, for some students when they graduate college, because they are entry level and for the most part do not have experience in various fields, that we won't be paid a lot of money. So essentially, the student loan payment would be very low. And then as our income increased, so would the payment amount. I believe I did not use the income driven repayment plan, but just whatever the dollar amounts were for my student loans, that was the agreed upon amount that I was going to pay. Now, one thing about my student loans, they were all federal student loans. And because I participated in the Peace Corps, which is funded by the US government, I was able to defer my student or put my loans into forbearance while I was out of the country and essentially volunteering, not making a lot of money. And when I returned to the United States, that's when I began looking for a job because I knew that those student loan repayments would be beginning in a short period of time. Also, when I returned from the Peace Corps back to the United States, I also had a credit card. And and long story short, I had some things on my credit card, particularly car tires that I purchased that went on that credit card. At that time, that was pretty much my only debt: student loans and a credit card. I basically made a goal for myself to pay my student loans off because I had another goal of eventually purchasing a home. With the credit card, things were going great. I was working, paying my student loans, and then a few months before my first year work anniversary, I was let go by that company. Unfortunately, I was not able to make payments on my credit card, and eventually that card was closed by that card company. A few things that I learned in the process of paying off debt is you want to set a goal for paying off debt. Once I started with a new employer, I was not working full time, I was working part time. I asked for a deferment because essentially my money could not afford the payments for the student loans and for me to live, put gas in my car, have insurance on my car, give tithes to my church and things of that nature. So the next job I got, or the next full-time job I got, it did cover the bills. I was employed full-time. I was a contractor for a company, and I had the goal of wanting to become a direct employee because that brought insurance benefits and other things such as contributing to a 401k, which I didn't know a whole lot about at that time, but I heard it's a good thing to contribute towards a retirement account. When I started with the company as a direct employee, one of the things, or excuse me, before I became a direct employee, I made a goal, as I mentioned, to pay off my student loans. And to this, I don't recall exactly how many student loans I had. I believe it was maybe 4 or 5. And some of them were small dollar amounts, like $1,000, 2,500. I knew the largest one was over $20,000. So I knew that one would take a while to pay off. So here's the strategy that I would give. If I could tell my younger me this, I would have followed it. When you're paying off debt, do not neglect savings, because you do need a savings account. You do need savings for emergencies, your emergency fund, things such as I mentioned, me buying tires on a credit card. If I had an emergency fund, when it came time to get all 4 tires, I could have easily paid out of pay for those tires out of the funds that I saved rather than having a credit card, which eventually had to be closed. The strategy that I used was essentially what Dave Ramsey would call the debt snowball. There are two main types of debt payoff. One is the debt snowball, which I use, which I will give more detail about. And then there's also one called a debt avalanche. And essentially you are paying your creditor with the highest interest rate first, and that's most likely a credit card, and you're paying that off, making that your first priority so you're not spending tons of money paying interest. Some people like this strategy because, again, they're saving lots of money in interest, but they're prioritizing that high interest debt first. So some people like it because you're, again, saving on that interest, but others, they want some wins, like some small wins that they can celebrate along the way, which is why I chose the debt snowball. With the debt snowball, you essentially take all of your debts and you write out the total amount, your interest payment, your dollar amount that you're paying monthly, and I think I said the total debt. If I didn't, the total debt. So for me, let's say 4 student loans. I said one was 1,000, one was 2,500. Let's say one was 5,000, and the biggest was 21,000. I don't recall the exact amounts, but let's use that as the example. So if you're using this debt snowball strategy, you want to make sure that you are paying, like, because the $1,000 debt is the smallest, you're going to pay that payment plus all of your other payments, minimum payments for those debts. But if you have additional funds that you can use toward debt, you're going to use those additional funds to pay off that smallest debt. So for example, if my $1,000 student loan payment was $25 a month, if I calculated my budget with giving tithes, making sure my car had gas every week, whatever car maintenance, car wash, other expenses that I had, if I saw that there was maybe like $100 left, this is me, this is the mistake I made, I would put all $100 towards paying off that debt. So instead of the loan company getting $25, they would get $125. And then in my mind, I thought to myself, if I pay $125 a month, how long will it take me to pay this debt off? So for me, using that strategy was very effective, and I was able to pay off student loans very quickly, get those small wins. Now, the thing that I said that I wish I would have done differently and would have talked to younger Marini, is, again, as I said, make sure I am saving. So I highly recommend, as you're paying off debt, do not be like me, who I call myself an Armageddon budgeter. It's like all or nothing, whatever's left. If I have to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or ramen noodles or an egg sandwich every day, hot dogs and salad, I did it. I'm telling you, I did it. And I did, feel sometimes a little deprived, but also I was very laser focused and intentional on paying off those debts. If I could do it over again, I would maybe say, maybe instead of doing all 100 extra dollars going to that student loan, perhaps I would do maybe 75 or $100 and then put that excess money in savings. So this is a strategy that you can use to make sure that you're not depriving yourself, or however you want to break up those dollars. So if you have extra $100 per month, do not deprive yourself. If you're like, I want to have a small simple breakfast out that I didn't cook, make sure you treat yourself occasionally. Now, I am not giving license, and nor do I condone, like, oh, well, Marini said treat myself, and you treat yourself every day or every single week. No, because we want to make sure we're setting ourselves up for good habits. But if we're so restrictive with our diets, if we're so restrictive with our finances, if even pets, sometimes if they're restricted, they're always in the house. That first opportunity, you open the door, the little doggy, he's gonna run out. He's gonna go into the street and just go crazy because he is always in the house. So with your budget, if you're so restrictive, if you cut out everything and you're like, well, I've got to save every single nickel, penny, dime, etc. for my emergency fund or for buying a house, then you're gonna get some okay, you're gonna perhaps you're gonna fail. I'm gonna say that you're gonna fail at some point. You may pay those bills off, but you're restricting yourself so long. And I've done this, that when I bought simple things like a blouse, a pair of shoes, and it's nothing crazy, not like $1,000 blouse or anything, but simple $20 blouse or something of that nature, I would feel guilty. I felt a tremendous amount of guilt, and that's because I did not give myself that wiggle room, so I did not feel deprived. So I encourage you, as you're budgeting, as you're saving, as you're paying off your debts, make sure that you live. Enjoy life, enjoy the process, and celebrate those small wins. And the wins when you pay off those debts, it doesn't have to be anything super fancy. If you want to get an ice cream cone, that's something small. I know I made it known to my friends when I was in college that I would, once I paid off all of my student loans, that I would throw myself this party just to say I am out of debt. And when I when I made my final student loan payment, guess what? I did not throw myself a party. I simply posted it on social, thank God, of course, as I was clicking submit for that last payment, and I just posted on social media, I have no more student loans. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You're super crazy. You don't have to, go into debt because you paid off those debts or that particular category of debt. But treat yourself. It can be a walk in the park. It can be a bubble bath. It can be a nice dinner out, or a dinner, or maybe ordering in from your favorite restaurant. But just something to acknowledge the fact that you are paying those debts off. So again, paying off your debt step by step. If you choose to pay off the high interest debt, the debt avalanche, you use that method. Or if you're like majority people use the debt snowball, because, oh, and I did not mention this, when you do the debt snowball method, what I did, because I was already giving paying the $25 to loan company for loan number one. Once loan number one was paid off, I just went to apply that extra money to loan number two. So for loan number two, if that amount was, what did I say, $2,000, if the payment was $50 a month, then what I was actually giving the company was $75. And then again, I thought to myself, well, if I'm giving them $75 a month, how many months will it take me to pay off this debt? And the thing I loved about the student loan debt with the federal student loans is those interest rates were very low. So I didn't have to worry about the debt that you would have with the credit card, such as 15, 20, some maybe go up to 30%. But it was manageable and easy for me to pay that off, work that in my budget, and then as loan two was paid off, did the same with three, And then for number 4, it took some time, but I was definitely glad that I used that method to pay off debts. So thank you for tuning in to the podcast today. And if today's podcast has helped you, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new lesson on mastering your money. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know by leaving a review, and share this podcast as well with a friend who's ready to build financial freedom too, so you can do it together. And if you're ready to take the next step, visit me at virtuefinancialsolutions.org to learn more about my coaching programs, workshops, and resources to help you on your financial journey. Until next time, remember, you don't just manage money, you master it.